All right, are we running?
Yep, looks good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Liv Simpkins-Bullock. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for Partners for Clean Streams, and we've got Kayla Kirkpatrick here, the Program Coordinator. And we are going to be giving you the tips and tricks you need for a fabulously successful waterway cleanup. This is the breakdown of what we're going to cover in the next hour. So we're going to go through the background of Clean Your Streams. Why do we do this? How have we kept it up for 27 years? What are the roles and responsibilities that you all have as site captains and that other folks have who help coordinate this program? What does the schedule of the day look like? What are our supplies? Some safety tips. How do we report data and why do we do that? And ending on the appreciation picnic. So to get us started, I have to say thank you all for taking time out of your evening to learn how to do this process. Got to thank our planning team. We've got several members on the call right now who are sitting in. We've got representatives from municipalities, from local businesses, and some nonprofit organizations that we partner with. And we also want to acknowledge our major sponsors, some of whom have been returning to sponsor this program for decades. So we're really, really grateful for the support. We have been doing this program for 27 years. So really briefly in the chat, I would love it if people would type in how many years you've been doing Clean Your Streams. Is this your first year? Is this your 26th year? There is somebody for whom that's true, but I'm not sure she's on the call tonight. But I'm always curious to see the ranges of folks who have done Clean Your Streams. And if you'd like, I would encourage you to add, if you're doing it for the first time, what intrigued you about this program, or if you're returning, what's got you coming back? I'm going to look in the chat. You're all sharing my screen for a moment as I look in this chat. So we've got second time, unsure, but more than 10. Yeah, so true for Natalie. She's a school teacher who has students participate with us. We've got a few first-time folks, and yeah, it is a cool thing to do, students. 19 years is probably the top number we've got in the call right now from Bob. It is fantastic to have you all here. And yeah, Kayla, for 6 years, she has me beat. This is my third Clean Your Streams working for PCS, but I did do it once when I was a kid. And frankly, I have somewhat limited memory of doing it. I wasn't fully aware of the context of the program. I just enjoyed getting muddy in a stream. And when you're a child, that's good enough. So how did we begin this program? A little bit of background for you all, because as site captains, you are leaders of your groups and people may ask you these questions. So you don't have to have it all memorized, but it can be kind of fun and satisfying to be able to have answers for the questions. So started in 1997, that's the math back from 27, with 60 volunteers. There were some sites along the Ottawa River and along Swan Creek, and it has majorly grown over the years. Earlier in the call, I mentioned that I think our top year, we had over 1,000 volunteers in 2018. We had a little bit of a dip in 2020, and we've been rebounding since then. So Kayla shared earlier that we've got over 500 people registered for the in-person kickoff so far, and we expect to get some late registrations. So looking just at last year in 2022, we had 652 volunteers. We got almost 14,000 pounds of trash, which is pretty incredible, marine debris removed from our waterways across 62 sites. So my personal hope is that we can top 15,000 pounds of trash this year. I believe in us. So Kayla and I work for Partners for Clean Streams. We are the nonprofit coordinating Clean Your Streams Day. We formed in 2007, so if you've been following those numbers, that means that Clean Your Streams Day actually predates our organization. We took it over from the Mommy Rap Committee. We have an office in Perrysburg, but we run programs all around the greater Toledo, Northwest Ohio area. And in short, one of our mottos is we get trash out of rivers and people into them. We have programs that run through all the warm months of the year, and we happily accept volunteer support and donations. We do a variety of things that are not just stream cleanups. So one of the biggest roles that we have is regional coordination and planning. We've been involved in habitat remediation projects in the past. We work with public education initiatives like Lake Erie Starts Here and Clear Choices Clean Water, and other kinds of community volunteer events that are not stream cleanups. So we run storm drain marking. If you've seen those fishing line recycling bins set up around Northwest Ohio, we're the organization behind those. So Clean Your Streams Day, what you all are doing is part of an international effort that's organized by the Ocean Conservancy. They have been doing a cleanup in September for over 35 years. And last year, our 652 volunteers were part of this uh, slightly over 500,000 international volunteers removing trash from the waterways. So we're really proud to be part of this effort. We're one of the biggest Great Lakes organizations and groups that submits data. And yes, indeed, Great Lakes states like ours are considered coastal regions. So the things that we share about the trash that we collect are really important information. If you're interested in learning more about the Ocean Conservancy, I've got a URL down there, and I highly recommend checking out the work that they do. So we'll touch on this a little bit more later, but we are not just picking up trash because it's a nice thing to do, but we are citizen scientists when we do this work. So we record the items that we collect and we weigh the items that we collect, the total bags and objects and things. So the trash data that groups like ours submit to the International Coastal Cleanup can help shape policies, can influence manufacturers, and we're an important part of a larger picture. And it is true, actually, that we are a moderate to large player on the Great Lakes, but we are a very big player in Ohio. We're the largest organization in Ohio that does this. So that's the background on what Clean Your Streams Day is. Let's get into what you all are actually going to be doing at this program. So there are 5 categories of person, and you are going to fall into at least one of them, and maybe 2 or 3 of them, depending on your role in this cleanup. So first up, we've got event coordinators. That's the staff of Partners for Clean Streams. We are responsible for planning and oversight. We set up the registration. We are going to feed you all at the volunteer appreciation picnic, coordinate garbage hauling, recycling tires, and we're people that are going to hear about it if an emergency comes up. We're not the first line to go to, but we do the big coordination. So on the left is our executive director, Chris. The middle is me, and then that's Kayla. Next up, we've got kickoff coordinators, some of whom are on this call. Somewhat self-explanatorily, they are responsible for coordinating kickoff locations. They are the folks who scout and select the sites that you're going to clean. So on the day of Clean Your Streams, in the morning you meet at your kickoff, you get given supplies, a little bit of orientation. Most of the kickoffs, maybe all of them, have breakfast, and then you'll get sent out to a site to actually clean. So your kickoff coordinators are going to be the folks who welcome and orient the volunteers. If you're a freelancing site captain, if you're coming to this training but you don't have a group with you already, they're going to assign you a group of people to help coordinate. They are the folks who work on garbage pickup for their specific region, and they are the second point of contact for emergencies. Obviously, the first point of contact is call 911, but they are the next people who need to know if an emergency comes up at your cleanup. So I'm not going to open the chat right now, but if there are kickoff coordinators, I know there's a few in the call right now. It would be awesome if you typed your name and then shared which region you're the coordinator of. And if you know what kickoff you're going to, you might see your coordinator there. So we've got some photos of our fabulous kickoff coordinators. Not all of them. We'll track them all down soon and get photos of them. But we are so, so grateful to these folks who volunteer on our planning team. They have months of meetings that they attend to help us get this event off the ground, and they work really hard. So thank you so much, kickoff coordinators. Next up, we have group leaders. Some of you might be group leaders. So you are a group leader if you're responsible for coordinating your specific organization. You might have registered the group. Maybe somebody else registered, but you're the one figuring out people's liability forms or helping people find carpooling, things like that. So some groups are so big, they need multiple site captains. So if there's a group bringing 50 people, it has happened before, we ask that there's one site captain for every 10 participants. We've just found that that's a good ratio. So if you have a 50-person group and you're the leader, you have to find 5 site captains. You don't have to be one of them, but you got to find them. So an important job for group leaders is if you're participating in challenges, we have youth challenges, collegiate challenges, and also what we call River Partner certification for businesses or nonprofits. You should let us know how many people are in your group. There's a form to fill out at your kickoff. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But we want to make sure that your group gets credit for the good work that you do. I was anticipating my next slide. So if your group has more than 10 volunteers, you do need more than one site captain. So next up, everybody here falls in this category. You are responsible for coordinating team members at the site. Remember what I mentioned before, how there are a kickoff where you're going to start in the morning and then you'll disperse out to different sites. And the site captains are the point of contact leader at that particular place. So your role is going to be to assign team jobs. The key ones are a data recorder and a trash picker-upper. You help distribute supplies, timekeep. People like to know, 15-minute warnings on things. We ask that you turn your data cards back in at the picnic. You've got some site captain reporting forms to do, and to have a basic safety awareness at your cleanup site. We're not asking that everybody is first aid certified or anything, but getting this safety training in this presentation should have you well covered. So like I mentioned before, site captains aren't always group leaders. Big groups need to have multiple site captains, and sometimes there are folks who have just done Clean Your Streams for a few years and they elect to be free-floating site captains. So they're able to help a bunch of other people who might come individually and form their own little group at Clean Your Streams Day. And another note is that site captains don't have to be data recorders, but you are responsible for making sure the data card gets filled out. So it tends to overlap. So like I mentioned before, key responsibility for site captain is safety. So you will get a little first aid kit among your supplies. It will probably be like a cloth bag or cloth fanny pack. Canvas is the right word, canvas fanny pack. It's got some good emergency contact numbers on it. It will also have the phone number for your kickoff coordinator, who, like I said, is the first point of contact after 911. You are not expected to administer first aid, but the safety kits do have things like Band-Aids, Neosporin, poison ivy wipes, anti-bug itch wipes, things like that. You're going to distribute and collect data cards, break people up into sub-teams and jobs, like I mentioned before. Sometimes, especially with kids, if you're coordinating groups of youths, it's helpful to switch their jobs so that they get a little novelty boost and don't wear out. Timekeepers, of course, and managing supplies. So you're responsible for getting the supplies from the kickoff to your site and then getting that supplies from your site to the kickoff coordinator. That typically means dropping your supplies off at the picnic, but there may be times when you arrange to have the kickoff coordinator come back to the site to get supplies. So one more overview of everybody's roles together. Here's what we're all going to be doing on Clean Your Streams Day. So event coordinators, that's the PCS staff, are going to be floating between kickoffs. Your kickoff coordinator is in charge of a regional area that is comprised of many sites. Group leaders are at a specific site, although very large groups may be split up to multiple sites. Site captains are at just one site. Team members are at just one site. So at this transition point, does anybody have any questions about the roles and responsibilities? You can feel free to type those in the chat, and then Kayla can either read out if there's a question or just tell me to move on if there's not.
I'm not seeing any right now, but I can give them a little moment if they need to keep writing. But
yeah, that's okay. I will move on for now, and we can return to questions at our next transition break. So here's what our day is going to look like. I love the word approximate in the title of this slide. We run a pretty timely event, but it's true that outdoor events with 600 people that involve lots of youth groups, the timing is approximate. But we do ask that you arrive at your kickoff location on September 30th between 8 and 8:15 in the morning. That just really helps us start off well. You check in first with your kickoff coordinator after you arrive. So key feature, every single member of your group needs a printed liability form. There will be some extras at the kickoffs, but if you have volunteers that are under 18, they need a parent or guardian to sign their liability form. So they probably can't do it on the fly at the kickoff. They've got to have them done in advance. You're going to review your site location and get some directions on how to get there, some instructions on where to park, and then most importantly, get your supplies so that you can get the gloves, bags, and grabbers that you need. So at 9, you'll travel to the site and begin cleaning after you get to eat some breakfast and get some orientation in that 8:30 to 9 window. Once you're at the site, you can establish team roles, pass out the supplies, let folks know where the garbage is to be piled. That is very important, or else people may leave their garbage in an incorrect place. So when your kickoff coordinator gives you a site, they will let you know the place to stage the garbage. So that way, the municipality who will come pick up the garbage doesn't get really confused and go on a goose chase trying to find your tires. And then the last point at 9 a.m. is review filling out data cards. So at 11:30 is the time to wrap up the cleaning, gathering all trash and bags into your designated location, collecting all reusable supplies, make sure the volunteers have totaled their data cards, complete reporting forms. And then finally, you can finish up and we invite you to the volunteer appreciation picnic. At the picnic, you can turn in your forms, data cards, and supplies. So the volunteer appreciation picnic is at the Lucas County Fairgrounds. We'll have this information later.
all right, before you move on, Liv, I
Yeah, of
do
course.
have a couple questions in chat.
Absolutely.
The first one was for site captains, what do you mean by keep time?
Oh, just let people know an hour has elapsed, or hey, there's 15 minutes until cleanup. Especially if you've got people who are dispersed over a wide space, people can get really enthusiastic. Picking up waterway trash is actually pretty fun, especially when you find strange things. So it's very helpful to have somebody oriented to the time so it doesn't get away from you.
Awesome, thank you. And then I also have a second question that asks, do we need to give a brief safety speech as a site captain before our group starts?
It can be helpful. The kickoff coordinators should mention a little bit, but especially when you're working with youths, I'll mention this a little bit later in the presentation. There's a few things that are really helpful to stress. So we're going to prime you on the safety speech that you can get to give if you are so inclined.
Awesome. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a perfect interjection moment. So next up are the supplies that you're going to use. Again, you're getting these from your kickoff coordinators and then bringing them back to the picnic once you're done with your site. So first up, liability forms. Every volunteer has to have a separate form signed. So you can't write everybody's name, squeeze it into the participant line. We've got to have folks separate. Volunteers under 18 need to have a parent or guardian adult signature. We've got the PDF available online, and you've also got it in the confirmation email. So you will get some supply kits based on the number of volunteers in your team. You don't have to know that fully in advance, but the kickoff coordinators are kind of going to have supplies set aside based on the size of the group that you registered. Once you actually get there and share, hey, we're here with this nonprofit or this business group and we've got 15 people, they'll make other adjustments. So your basic supplies are, we've got coated gloves so that you can touch things that are damp. We usually have cloth gloves that are coated on the palms, plus, like you can see in the photo, those green sort of dish-like nitrile gloves that give a little bit more protection. Lots of sizes and shapes of bags. Sometimes you want a really big bag, and sometimes you need a small bag. Usually a few grabbers per group, but some groups need them a little bit more than others. Kids are better at bending down than us folks over 30. So we sometimes distribute the grabbers based on need. Garbage pile signs are a critical supply, actually. So it's very helpful when you're leaving trash out in a public park or many of you are cleaning to put a little laminated sign on that that says, this was not dumped here, actually. It was removed from a stream by volunteers, because that keeps us from getting complaint calls from concerned citizens. The parks where we work all know that we're going to be there, but occasionally not everybody knows what we do. So garbage pile signs, critical supplies. Clipboards is in scare quotes because you may find that it's a piece of cardboard with a rubber band around it. They get the job done just fine. I don't think it deserves the scare quotes. Pencils, of course, data cards, which we'll get into, first aid kits, and a note on PPE face masks. We're going to have some available, but if you plan to wear one, you might want to bring your own. We will have hand sanitizer available at the kickoff and in your first aid kits. So these materials are particularly for you. You will get a first aid kit, which I mentioned before, has a phone number sheet for emergency contacts, got a safety tip card, which you could also use for your safety talk if you wanted, and a little bit of info about Clean Your Streams Day. You will get a site map, including parking and garbage pile info. You'll get a reporting form and some extra supplies, just in case. So that was a quick one. Any questions on supplies?
Not
You
seeing
can tell
anything
there's
right now, but I will let you know.
Okay, sure thing. You can tell there's a bit of redundancy built into this presentation. That is by design because we humans all remember things better when we hear them a few different times. So now is the section where we're going to dig into safety. It was a great question earlier that if you all should give safety talks, it can be really helpful. Some of the things that I'm going to go through here are going to seem very obvious to you probably as adults, but this is meant to jog your mind, especially if you're working with youths who might not be as situationally aware as you are. So don't imagine that I'm lecturing you. Imagine that I'm lecturing the hyperactive 7-year-old who is in your Cub Scout group that you're working with. So this is our number one safety guideline. If you're not comfortable touching something, don't touch it. This sounds obvious, but trust me, you get into a flow. It's very exciting picking up marine debris. You want to find the weirdest stuff or the heaviest stuff. You want to get more than your friends. You can kind of get into an automatic mind state, but keep your awareness around you and don't feel like you have to pick up something if you're not comfortable picking it up. You can mark anything with flagging tape, which is in the first aid kit. It's stretchy plastic tape, and let your kickoff coordinator know. We're going to go through some items that you might want to mark with flagging tape if you find. Obviously, wear the gloves that we give you, share the grabbers to pick certain things up. and it's really helpful if you isolate sharp items. So if you find broken glass, you can put that into a thick plastic Gatorade bottle or something like that. You can double or triple bag something before adding it to the garbage bag. That keeps not just you volunteers safer, but also the trash collection folks safer at the end of the process. Again, if somebody is seriously injured or needs treatment, call 911 first. Afterward, tell your kickoff coordinator. But the first priority is getting somebody real medical attention. So, like I mentioned before, watching what you pick up, being mindful of your surroundings, and not getting into an automatic flow are some of the top safety tips that we can give you. A lot of you are going to be on muddy creek sides or stream sides that might have steep banks. So paying attention to your feet, really important to never climb on log jams, which we have a wonderful log jam photo below. Those are twisted ankle city. It is very easy to get your foot caught in one of those and wind up with something sprained, and they can also be quite loose. So you might end up falling through completely and getting wetter feet than you intend. So simply don't climb on log jams. Watch for poison ivy, wear long pants and closed-toed shoes. Bring bug repellent if sensitive. We have some supplies in first aid kits to deal with stings and poison ivy, but the best protection is just to be mindful of your surroundings. So, digging in, we've got some natural identification here. For those unfamiliar with poison ivy, the classic line is 3 leaves, let it be. But I find even more helpful is remember that the outer 2 leaves are kind of like mittens. They've got little thumbs. So they've got a little thumb point and then a 4 fingers point. And that helps you differentiate it from other shapes of 3-leaved plants. And they've always got a reddish stem. It is common in, oh, look, exactly the kinds of areas where we're probably going to be cleaning. So disturbed areas along roads and trails and near human activity. So watch where you're placing your hands and where you're walking. And if you come into contact, dish soap works completely fine to get poison ivy off, actually. Any kind of grease cutting soap works fabulously. And if you have an immediate contact concern or you're highly reactive, you can use the wipes in your first aid kit. Even though we do clean your streams in September, wasps and bees are still on our minds because they're such a common allergy. They're still out there living their little bee lives. So we'll keep in mind that individual wasps and bees are generally not dangerous. Especially encourage kids to just walk away. Don't swat them. Don't press them against yourself. Sting treatment wipes are in your first aid kit. And it's very helpful to ask your group if anyone has an allergy. And if they do, have treatment for allergies prior to getting out and muddy in your site. Going over that in the safety training is really helpful. And of course, a prime time to call 911 if somebody has allergic reaction, if there's swelling, lightheadedness, nausea, or vomiting, any of these things. Don't tell your kickoff coordinator first, call 911 first, then tell your kickoff coordinator. Some common and uncommon hazards to find. So we don't share these things to scare you or because you're likely to find them, but because finding them is possible, we want to give you all the tools to be informed. So among the more common things to find are needles, broken glass, nails. This is a good example of something not to put directly into a trash bag. While wearing gloves, put them carefully into puncture-resistant bottles or other kinds of containers. You don't need to have a designated sharps container for what we're doing, just put them inside of a thick water bottle or something else. Guns or other weapons, again, we do not expect you to find this, but if the possibility comes up, this is an example of something that you should use your flagging tape. You can put it on a nearby branch or something that's easier to see, and then you should tell your kickoff coordinator. And then toxic chemicals, you may find something that is leaching a strong smell like kerosene or gasoline. If there's particular kinds of film on the water, you should make a visible flag and then tell your kickoff coordinator. They have their own contacts that they know what to do with finding these things. Another example of not likely but possible, so it's worth warning you about. You may find, and this also depends on the site, I'll add, there are some things that we would more expect to see at some sites than others, and we wouldn't assign youth groups to these sites. But you may possibly find drug paraphernalia, bongs, pipes, needles for drugs. If you're comfortable with those items, just pick up and safely dispose. Again, sharps need to go into a safe container. It has happened before that growing illegal drugs, we'll put it like that, have been found by volunteers. That's an area to flag and tell your kickoff coordinator, do not remove anything from that area. And if you find anything processed or anything that you even have a suspicion about, don't pick it up. That's the #1 rule. Tell your kickoff coordinator. It's a bit of a refrain. So local police departments know that we do this event. We inform them every year because there's a chance that we could find items like this, and they've asked us to leave them in place. So we were asked by the Sheriff's Department to advise you all about meth activity. It's very, very unlikely, I would add. To the regular unlikely, I would say very, very unlikely that you'll encounter this activity, but we've been asked to inform you about what to do just in case. So your kickoff coordinator has a little bit of training in how to recognize and handle this situation. The rules are the same. Don't touch anything, clear volunteers out of the area, leave a visible flag on a tree or an item that you can see, and then contact the kickoff coordinator. So this was again something that we were asked by the Sheriff's Department to share, not because any of our volunteers have ever found it, but these are the methods that people use to make meth. So the one pot method can be found anywhere, rural or urban. And the reason why we really don't want you to pick it up is that it can kind of function like a bomb under pressure. So the ingredients on their own are toxic, and then together they can form a dangerous pressurized situation. So things to look for are plastic bottles with white solid and dark pieces, or you might just find like that middle picture, a collection of a bunch of different bottles that are weirdly put together, and they may have cold and sinus med packaging, lithium metal from batteries, lye and drain openers. So if there's like certain collections of things that just raise your suspicion, leave it in place. Flag it, tell your kickoff coordinator, encourage your volunteers to clear out. So last note from the Sheriff's Department, opiates and fentanyl are a growing concern in our area. If you see a very small plastic wrapper with a twisted top or very small folded up pieces of foil, don't touch them, flag it, contact your kickoff coordinator, of course. So
I
that's
did have a question.
Yeah, of
real
course. That's
quick.
through the really
Sorry.
scary stuff that is not likely. What's the question?
If you don't have the answer, I do. One of our site captains from Tex asked whether authorities and trash pickup know that Tech is doing a cleanup this Saturday.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, we have notified them, so you are all good.
Yeah, the Tex, Toledo Early College High School is a many years running participant in Clean Your Streams, and they had a schedule conflict this year, so they're doing their cleanups this Saturday, actually. But the rest of you are doing it on the 30th. So we're out of the scary stuff now. Now we're just into some other things to be mindful of as you find yourself cleaning. So there are folks who live in Northwest Ohio who don't have houses, and we treat sites that we find like this as somebody's home. So you should only clean up a site that looks clearly abandoned if it looks like it was in recent use, or if there's even any ambiguity if it was in use, you should leave it be and clean somewhere else. You wouldn't want somebody to clean up your home and all of your worldly possessions, so we certainly don't want to do that to somebody else. Occasionally, somebody living in a homeless camp may approach you and give you things they'd like to be removed. That's fine. Sometimes people are just curious what you're up to because it's rare that people are wandering around streams picking things up. So we can just be friendly and polite and explain exactly what we're doing, and we'll take somebody's trash. It's not going to wind up in a river. So you should always let your kickoff coordinator know if you need to leave an area without cleaning it up. If there's any circumstance in which you feel uncomfortable in an area, You don't have to stay there. You're not compelled. Just let your kickoff coordinator know if you need a new site or if you need to relocate for any reason. The next item is valuable items. This has happened before at cleanups. So if you find something like a credit card, wallet, jewelry, safe, yes, volunteers have found safes, or anything with a serial number, these items should not be thrown away with the rest of your trash. You should note the location where the item is found. You can remove the item if it's not a heavy safe. If it's a wallet, it's fine to remove. You should take it back to your kickoff coordinator, and they are going to probably turn it over to the local non-emergency police line. That was our last thing that we did when we found a wallet at a cleanup. And if you do find something that's large, if you are the next volunteer to find a safe, you should flag it before telling your kickoff coordinator. So final notes for safety. We ask that you have 2 adults per group when working with youth volunteers. This is similar to other organizations' policies like the Scouts. Basically, we want to minimize one-on-one adult and youth interaction to have more accountability and safety. And because it's 2023, we want to follow all the appropriate COVID-19 policies for your organization or group that are set in place at this time. There's not currently any restrictions, but it's worth keeping in mind. General advice for physical safety: don't work alone. You may have volunteers in your group who just get really keen and kind of wander off on their own, but please encourage people to work in pairs or work in larger groups if it's a group of youths and adults. Use the safety supplies we've provided. We're giving you gloves and grabbers. Why not use them? And the last note is, if you have any broad concerns or issues about safety, the right person to contact is our executive director, Chris Patterson, who you can reach at executive.director@partnersforcleanstreams.org. And that email address is also on our website. So this is our overview of what should go up the chain for safety. I think this is our final safety note here. So if you find broken glass and pocket knives, personal protective equipment, syringes and hypodermic needles, you don't need to tell your kickoff coordinator. There's a space for those on your data card. You could also write them in particular if you want to, like list them out, but you don't even have to. One-time discarded drug paraphernalia. So an example of this would be if you find a bong. If it's not a meth lab, you just write it on your data card. If there's a valuable item, anything with a serial number, credit cards, or jewelry, contact kickoff coordinator by the end of the cleanup and then hand it off to your kickoff coordinator to give it to the non-emergency police line. And then the last set of things are things to tell your kickoff coordinator about immediately. And again, you can find their phone number in your first aid kit. And those are anything to do with meth labs, opiates, or fentanyl, any items that might pose an immediate threat, like chemicals letting off gases, if a volunteer has a medical emergency, including a severe allergic reaction, or if you find a weapon like a gun or a knife. So we'll now calm down and look at this data recording duck, but are there any questions about safety? Actually, I'll leave it on our last slide in case you want to take a screenshot. This is a really helpful overview.
People are screenshotting. I'll let you know. I haven't seen any messages. We do have one person typing though, so I'll give them a second.
No problem. I'll just repeat one more time that we have not found some of the more dangerous items here. We just want to be cognizant and be as responsible as we can be.
I had a question about whether we'd be sharing the PowerPoint after this meeting, and yes, we will.
Yes.
I will send out an email soon with both the recording and the PowerPoint itself.
Thank you, Kayla. She is so on it. So, side note, I took this picture. It was at a really beautiful cleanup on the Maumee River. There were two ducks that were just hanging out with us. It was at Otsego. So, this is an important part of what we do before I move on from this slide. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a lovely thing to do to pick up trash. It improves our community pride in our waterways. It keeps our water safer for animals and for humans. But we don't just want to pick it up. We want to learn what it is that we're removing. And to do that, we report data. So, why do we go through the trouble of doing this? Four big reasons. We want to measure our impact and the difference that we make. We want to compare marine debris from site to site and year to year. Side note, although we're in the Great Lakes, we still call it marine debris. That's just the term. We want to learn how to best target removal, prevention, and education strategies. So, for example, our prevention strategies are going to be really different if we find a lot of single-use plastic waste or if we find a lot of large-scale illegal dumping. And then finally, we want to share our results with other organizations, government agencies, and companies. We can say, hey, we picked up a bunch of trash, and they'll go, that's cool. But if we say, hey, we picked up 15,000 pounds of trash over 24 hours, that's going to get people interested. So how do we actually use this cleanup data? We want to understand area trends. So like the trend I just mentioned, we now find much more single-use plastic than 27 years ago, which makes sense based on how our consumption habits have changed. But on the good news, we have less large-scale illegal dumping in our area. So we're not going out into the woods and finding appliances or toilets or giant piles of tires quite so often as we did in 1997. So we want to share data with our local jurisdictions. They're very interested in what people find in our waterways, in their specific waterways especially. And we tailor prevention and education methods to what is being found, where we're finding it, and how it ends up there. So there's a difference between, for example, escaped trash that washes into a storm drain from trash cans that aren't covered properly versus illegal dumping of tires. So then regionally and nationally, we use identified trends to inform policy and funding decisions. That's groups like the Ocean Conservancy, who we report to, who do things like that. And they work with companies to change packaging and disposal methods to reduce the debris in our water. So how do we actually record data? Well, we have these fantastic data cards. This is preferred for Cleaner Streams Day kickoffs just because they're universal for everybody. It gets submitted in the exact same form. They have very little user error. We find a good system works to have 3 to 4 people cleaning up per one data recorder. If there's more than 3 or 4 people calling out the items that they remove, it can be quite overwhelming. So post cleanup, you're going to want to turn in your data card and your site captain reporting form to your kickoff coordinator. We also use an app called CleanSwell that I'll say a little bit more about later, but there is a digital version of a data card, which is a good option if you're doing a remote clean on your own kickoff. So this is what our data cards look like. So we've got some sections highlighted at the top. The most important thing is to please put your name and your phone number, because if we have questions about your data card, there's a chance that we'll call you. And it's also helpful for organization purposes to know who's doing what. So you definitely want to fill in the name of your site. If you don't know what it's called, you can ask your kickoff coordinator, or you can put the nearest road or the waterway. All those help us a lot. Oh, I've highlighted these sections here now that I've explained them to you. So we've got our top section with our kickoff coordinator, site captain, and data recorder, and then we've got our site information section there at the bottom. So in this middle section, you'll see in a moment, the back has many categories of items, but this middle section lets you list things that don't fall into these categories, and it can often help us understand the weight of your trash better. If you say, oh, we didn't have a category for this, but we also found a bunch of broken wooden furniture and a washing machine, which absolutely happens. So we do have some estimates to help you with the weight of your trash. we are providing as many small scales as possible to different kickoffs. So fingers crossed, you should all have access to a luggage scale that you can use to hook your trash bags onto, and then it'll tell you how much your trash weighs. So you won't have to estimate, you'll know for sure. We've got some encouragement to please share photos with us by social media or email, and more on challenge competitions for photos later. But I will be working remotely at this time, and I will see the awesome photos of volunteers working and of strange finds and share those on social media if you give us permission to.
I do have a question real quick.
Yeah,
Sorry
of
to cut
course.
you off.
Not at all.
So we got a question about how many data collectors one team leader would be. Would it be 3, 2? How many would they?
Depends on the size of your group. So if the general rule of thumb is 3 to 4 picker-uppers per recorder. If you have a group of 10 total, that's probably 2 teams, and each team has 1 recorder, 4 picker-uppers. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me, but I'll double check with them to make sure.
Yeah. So yeah, a group of 10, you'll probably all go to the same site, and then at that site, you can split into 2 sub-teams. And then maybe one person goes up the stream and one group goes up the stream, one group goes down the stream.
All right, perfect. Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, of course, that's a great question. So you're going to use tally marks in each of these many categories and then total the tally marks at the cleanup at the end. That is super, super helpful to us because everybody is better at reading their own handwriting than making somebody else read their handwriting, right? So please, please total your data cards. If you have multiple groups that have collectors and recorders, make sure that those data recorders total their categories. So it might not be you who's doing it. We, believe it or not, go through every single data card, no joke, not fooling around, and we input them into the Ocean Conservancy's TIDES database. The easier you make this for us to read, the happier we are. We are just 3 human beings who have to look at many pieces of paper. So we love it when you use your best handwriting. So down there at the bottom, you can use that section to check your results. And then we've got a weight estimation guide. And then remember to record any items not in these categories on the front. Brief note on the CleanSwell app. Don't use both because then your data will double count and it will confuse us why there are 2 different submissions from one place. Like I said before, if you've registered for the remote kickoff, it's a good option to do. So when you start the cleanup, you share, I find this app pretty intuitive, but I'll go through it briefly, which is you share the number of people. When you name the group, it's really helpful if you call your group CYS27, because that way we know for sure you're associated with us. If you do it during the remote week and you're in Northwest Ohio, we'll probably count your data, but we really like knowing you're for sure associated. So from that middle panel, you can see that it's laid out much like a data card. You have broad categories, and then it'll open up the categories to show you examples inside. And then all you have to do is tap the tiles to get things to appear in the categories. So it's just like, excuse me for moving on, it's just like a paper data card in that way. But at the end of the cleanup, you just hit the submit button and it will show up in a database. Note that we actually cannot see the email addresses submitted. We can't see, the app lets you upload photos, but we can't see them, so it's kind of a lie. So we don't always, if you don't put anything as your group name, that's the only field that we see, like information-wise. We don't have your username or anything, so you have to put your group name in for us to know who you are. So another note on CleanSwell is that it can't estimate the weight very well when you need to record large and unusual items. You, a human being, are much better at estimating weight. So you should manually adjust the weight before the end of the final submission. And you've got to hit submit for that data while you're on site at the cleanup. Otherwise, it will record you as your cleaning time during your journey home. So it will tell us, wow, this person cleaned 30 miles, but you probably didn't. You just drove 30 miles to get somewhere. So end the cleanup in location. Notes on garbage hauling, which we touched on a bit earlier, but if you find something way too large to move, these guys in the photo are intrepid, but if you don't have two grown men willing to move a water tank, it looks like, don't bust your back doing it. Just flag it, record it, and tell your kickoff coordinator. There may be a circumstance where you have to pile garbage someplace other than designated. If there's a bunch of really heavy things that are at the bottom of a stream, this is another thing to note and tell your kickoff coordinator. But as much as possible, please put garbage in the designated sites. Tires are kept separate because we are going to recycle tires. And at the time that we made this presentation, we thought it would be with this program, but actually it's going to be through a grant with the Metro Parks and through some municipalities that are donating tire recycling to us. So thank you, City of Oregon, the City of Toledo, and the Metro Parks. The appreciation picnic section is really brief, so I'm going to go through this and then save other questions until the very end because I want to keep to 8 p.m. for those of you who have to leave right on time. So appreciation picnic. We've cleaned everything up. We recorded our data. We piled our trash to the designated location. It's time to take our supplies back and get some free food. So to thank you all, we offer free food. We'll have pizza, breakfast foods, fruits, chips, good stuff. We have beautiful Clean Your Streams t-shirts. This year they are forest green with lime font, and I think they look really cool. And we've got an incredible selection of door prizes and raffle prizes from local businesses. So highly encourage you to participate in that. So at the picnic, you drop off your supplies. We will have education tables from various local partners that share creatures and facts and activities for local waterways. We will have youth challenge competition winners announced. So if you're part of a youth group, you submit your challenge data here, and then we'll tally it all up and then see who the winners are. You should absolutely be part of the group photo, and you just have a fun time. Recommend the picnic. Brief note on challenges. There's lots of information about this on our website, but for youth groups, you have categories of most volunteers, greatest number of trash bags, awesome effort for the largest average number of trash bags per person. Similar challenges for collegiate groups, only we know that a lot of college students can't come to the picnic, so we will take your data from your data cards and then determine winners after Clean Your Streams Day. And then we also have photo challenges. So we really encourage you to submit your best before and after and strangest find photos. We got some awesome submissions last year and I want to keep it up. Our last feature of challenges is we do recognize businesses, nonprofits, and other groups. So when you check in at your kickoff, let your kickoff coordinator know that your group name and how many members are participating, and we can give you a certificate and feature you on our website as a participating group with a fun little title like Watershed Warrior or Creek Crusader. So we really, really encourage you to send us photos. We have a lot of social media going before and after this event. If you don't currently follow us on our channels, highly recommended. We try to bring some positivity to your newsfeed and share fun and inspiring stories in an era where a lot of social media can be a bit gloomy. So definitely share your photos with us. And you can also email, if you're not a social media person, just email admin@partnersforcleanstreams.org. Final reminders, and then we'll open it up for our last questions. Thank you all so much for your attention this evening. So liability forms are critical. All volunteers must complete them. Minors must have a parent or guardian signature. Safety. Don't pick up anything you're not comfortable with. The golden rule. Removing garbage. Separate piles of trash for different haulers. There's only 3 categories. There's not a bunch of recycling categories. There's just, is it in bags? Is it unbagged? Which usually means very large things like that water heater picture we saw earlier. And tires do get recycled. They're in a separate pile. And then complete your data card as you go, or submit data via CleanSwell if you're in a remote kickoff. Explore and enjoy your waterways. Every year we have some volunteers who say, I have never been this close to the Maumee River before. I've only ever driven on it on a bridge, or kids find crayfish or other creatures in rivers and streams, and it's a lot of fun. So you're giving back, but you can also have fun in the process. We encourage you to have a spirit of playfulness and exploration. And reminder that you can always support clean, clear, and safe water all year, not just at Cleaner Streams, by donating to our organization, Partners for Clean Streams. So now is the time that you can ask questions of your kickoff coordinators, some of whom are in the chat and differentiated themselves earlier, and you can also ask questions of Kayla and I.